The Pete Carroll Show. The first word from the Seahawks head coach every Monday at 9:30 with Mike Salk. Brought to you by Pizza Hut on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Well, here it is, Pete Carroll Show. Unfortunately, Coach, second time in a row we're doing this after a loss. We haven't had to do that too many times over the years, especially two straight. So it's been a credit to what this organization's been about and the ability to bounce back. But what happened yesterday?
Yeah, frustration, man. We went up against a team that had been doing well quietly. Nobody realized that they had been putting up 30 points a game and doing their thing, and it had looked really good on offense, and we didn't change that. You know, we weren't able to get them off track, and it was going to take a day of third downs where we kicked butt, and we didn't. And the second half became, you know, it seemed like the second half was really hard to take, like they were just killing us. But they got 3 field goals, you know, in the second half, but it was the drives that kept our offense from being on the field. There's an 8-minute, a 5-minute, a 7-minute drive in there that just kept our offense from having the chances to get back out there, and we needed to stay when we got out. So it didn't work out right, and they have a big day, and so it's really frustrating for our guys. Our expectations are very high, and so you know, we got to get through this and get going and get rolling. Fortunately, Mike, no matter how you start, you know, it's how you get going, how you finish, and so we got to turn this thing.
Yeah, you mentioned the third down. So were you referring more to your offense? Your offense was 3 of 8. Defense gave up 9 of 14.
No, it's the defense. Yeah, on both sides, it's the same. In the second half, the 2 5-play drives, you know, we need to convert on third down, and we didn't. You know, and so that's it goes both ways. But it so often that is the case of how the game goes, you know, and over the years. And yesterday, you know, 9 of 14 is way too much, and they function and we didn't.
So what is the philosophy on third downs? How does the game change once you get into those third down situations defensively?
Well, it's all situational, you know. It depends on what the D&D is there and how you play it. But we're trying to be aggressive. We want to put the attack on them. It didn't feel like that yesterday, you know, and we want to make them have to function under duress. There's a couple of illustrations where Kirk Cousins makes plays on us, you know, when we are roaring at him, and he made a couple throws. But there wasn't enough of those, and we needed to keep the pressure on him. And it primarily comes down to making it hard on the quarterback. That's what you got to make it hard on the QB so he can't function as well, and keep him from, you know, hitting a bunch of them.
So how do you do that? I mean, it can be through pressure. It can be through coverage. I mean,
yes.
When you point at the issues on third down, where does your mind go?
Well, first, it's first goes to pressuring the quarterback, you know, and making sure that he's under duress, that to make it hard for him to function. So that you can do that a number of ways, but you know, the obvious way you think, just blitz the guy. Well, we did a couple times. We had guys free, and he functioned really well in that situation and got the ball out and was fortunate on a couple throws, but he did a great job. And so then you got to go to mixing your coverage and your rush, and hopefully that, you know, that creates the problem. And we just didn't cause enough problem for him yesterday, and he's been hitting like crazy, and he did it again, you know. And so you're going to see, if he can keep going, he is off to an incredible start, and you know, more power to him. It sucks that we weren't able to do something about it.
Can you help me understand the role of linebackers in the passing game? I think it's easy for me or for a fan to see a completion and say, it's on the cornerback, it's on the secondary, because we associate them with what they need to do in pass coverage. What is the role of your linebackers in your pass coverage? Yeah,
it's a really good question that's rarely talked about, you know, about what is their role. It goes along with the calls that you have, you know, that whether it's man-to-man or zone calls, and it's either or. It's either man or zone. And most teams primarily play zone and mix their man-to-mans in there because you get vulnerable in man-to-mans to a certain extent, and you give up big plays. Guys get caught in one-on-ones. So most of the emphasis is for linebackers to drop into their zones, depending on what kind of zone it is, and get the ball to get dumped off. Really try to make the ball thrown underneath you. That's the primary way you play zone defense. So you have to be in the right spots. So you force the quarterback to have to take the check down, and then you try to minimize the check down. And that's That's the game you play. If you're minimizing the check down well enough, then you're okay in zones. If not, if they're making 7 or 8 yards a snap, checking the ball down, then you have to mix, and then you try to cover more aggressively in man coverage. So there's guys on guys, so the check down isn't as available. And that's the game we've played the last couple of weeks, and we've been back and forth with it. And so the linebackers always have a lot of responsibility. The corners are playing, depending on 3 deep zones and 2 deep zones. If they're in 3 deep, then they've got the outside areas down the field. And if it's 2 deep zone, then they get to play in the flat, and they get to play more aggressively. And that puts the burden somewhere else. So it all fits together, and you have to function. It's, and all of that gets amplified to the good when you rush the passer really well, because it just makes the ball come out faster. Zones get extended when the quarterback holds the ball, and the spaces get larger and harder to defend.
It's confusing, certainly for me or for most fans, I think, to try to understand all that. It also sounds like there may be some confusion on the field for some of the players. We heard 2 different players after the game mention some questions they had about either understanding the scheme or what the scheme was. Do you know what they're referring to?
First off, they're referring to the frustration that they feel, and we all feel. And I would think that if when there's criticism and you're playing zone and they're going to try to understand how, we're playing deep zone concepts with their third corners, and if the ball gets thrown underneath, it looks like they're not playing aggressively enough. Well, that has to do with under coverage and a lot of stuff. And I think that's the question. We were trying to stay on top of these guys, not let them get any big plays, and which we did that part of it for the most part. And it gets frustrating when they continue to get some. And so and I think that's all it is. We're no different than we've ever been conceptually and all that. And I do want to say this too. We really missed Andre Curtis not being there. He's their guy, and
that's your secondary coach. For those who don't know the name, he's the secondary coach, and he was out on a personal.
He had an illness thing that he had to take care of. He wasn't able to travel, and so we missed him on the trip. And he's the guy that settles everything down and keeps everybody on track. And he lives and dies with these guys. And he wasn't there, and it was obvious. And no matter how much background I've got or how much background Deshaun Shedd has, we weren't the right voice at that time, and we didn't do a good enough job. And as it got to be a difficult challenge for the guys, I wish I could have helped them more to keep them settled and clear on what was going on. So we'll take care of that. That's not an ongoing issue, but it was unfortunate in this game.
How do you assess the play of the guys in the corner? I heard you say after the game that Sidney Jones is getting closer. Could we possibly see him this week?
Yeah, the issue is just getting these guys adapted, and trying to gauge from the snaps they get in practice, how game ready are they for all the things that happen. And we're just trying to postpone that so that they can be caught up, so that mistakes don't happen that they have not been able to to iron out and all that through the reps and all. So he's done a nice job in practice, and he's looked good, and he's a nice football player, and I would love for him to get a chance to play some. So you'll see what happens this week.
To the other, I guess the last question there in the defense then, is there the possibility of outside help? We've heard some names pop up through the news, whether it's Geno Atkins, Richard Sherman's name has popped up. Would either of them be a possibility at this time?
Mike, we're always working it. John never is quiet on stuff, so he's got conversations with people really all around the league for opportunities, and it takes two to tango and stuff. And if you're talking about players in other teams, and we're looking at everybody. We always are, and so that is ongoing.
To the offensive side of the ball, there was a lot of talk in town, I think, last week about DK Metcalf and kind of playing right on the edge. I saw him score a touchdown yesterday. I didn't even think he celebrated. He just kind of, as if flatline, where did that come from, and what did you think of the change in DK?
I thought that he made a conscious decision during the game last week at halftime. He came up to me and said, I'm done, with whatever. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. I knew exactly what he was poised and composed about it, and he has just decided that he's not going to try to see what else he can get done in the game other than play really good football. And he focused great during the week. He had an excellent week and had an excellent game, and I think that's what you saw. You saw him. He made a conscious decision to turn the focus and not be distracted by stuff, and he did it.
I think you like him a lot. Just listening to you and the way you tell that story, I think you get a lot of respect for DK Metcalf.
I really do. I really have a lot of respect for him. He's He's an extraordinary person, and I always kind of I bristle a little bit when everybody talks about what the great athlete he is, and the specimen and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, he's an extraordinary person, and we'll see over the course of time. He'll show you, who he is and what he's all about as he navigates this early part of his career. He's figuring out how it works and how it fits together, and who he is as a young professional athlete and all that. And it's a process, and so. And it's a growing process, and he's doing an excellent job. And he has so much potential in so many areas that he has to figure out how to manage it all, and that's what he's doing. And he certainly is a heck of a football player.
He seems like a really interesting dude.
I say all that, then I say he's a heck of a football player. He's a heck of a person, and he's a really, really good football player too, is what I meant.
Well, he also, though, it's interesting that position. There's a long line of people that have. Changed over the course of their career as they've gotten better and better at playing that specific position, these uncoverable wide receivers. And I don't know where it all comes from, but I would think that that's something that, you almost have to work through with him along the way because of some of the previous examples of other human beings and where they've gone.
I think that's precisely what we're talking about, and there's so many images and examples for guys. There's been a lot of flamboyant players that have played that position for whatever reason. It's just always been that way, and he's going to be an extraordinary person through this process of his career and showing you that, I think, and he's on his way.
How did Russ play this week?
I thought he played really solid, really good football, and did a nice job with this. Really, that was a great stadium. They did a fantastic job. They were really choreographed and orchestrated. It was loud from the get-go, and I was really impressed right off the bat. The first 3-4 drives, we went right up and down the field, and everybody functioned, and that's Russ right in the middle of all of that. I thought he handled it really well. Unfortunately, we didn't see it continue. We didn't quite get the momentum like we had early, but I thought he did a really good job.
So what's happened there? First of all, I agree. It looked great on TV. The drum and the horn and all of it. It just a rabid fan base. It did look great.
Yeah.
I'd imagine your guy Bud Grant would have been happy to have seen all of that, right?
Well, he knows. Yeah, he was up to the lake.
What has been the problem with sustaining some of the offensive success? We've seen a ton of it early in games, and then they shut out in the second half. I know they didn't have that many possessions, but what has changed, and how have teams been able to minimize some of that success in the second half?
Really, it's just unfortunate. We had 5 plays one drive, 5 plays the next drive, and we get the ball back with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. Mm-hmm. That's it, in the game. And so it just amplifies the execution. It has to be there to get the drive rolling, and we didn't get it done, and then the ball goes back to the other team, and they're holding it. And so it's happened both games that way in really frustrating fashion for us, because each play is so crucial. Each, we throw a screen and we don't connect on it. We try another one or another drive, totally different play, and it didn't connect on those. Each play you're going, God, why do we? You're pulling your hair out. Why should why did we go here and there? And that's just how it happens when you're frustrated about it. There was nothing. They didn't do anything different. We didn't function as well, and we need to get off the field on the other side. And so that's just how it went, and it looked similar, and it's frustrating in the same fashion again. So that makes it even doubly hard.
Do you have a sense yet of what kind of a team this is and will be, or even necessarily what you want it to be?
In some regards, Mike, I really deeply understand it, but in terms of us taking it to game day and being comfortable and showing it and making it really obvious to the rest of the world, that's still there for us to do. And there's so much improvement out there for us. This is such a long season. There's so much time, and it seems so frustrating, like to feel other teams doing well, and we're not as well off as we should be right now. But there's all kinds of opportunities in time, and we're going to work at it and get better. And we can't help but get better. There's too much character. There's too much leadership. There's too much spirit about this team. We played hard all the way through the end of the end sequence of the game. We're knocking the heck out of them to try to get the ball back. Their heart is in it, and so we will turn this. So
to come good, that sounds great. But the first part of that answer is the part that you do understand, the part that explains what this team, what the identity essentially should be. what do you want the identity of this team
Yeah,
to
we
be?
want to play really tough defense. We want to do our thing on special teams like we're doing, and we want to have an attack that we can go wherever we need to go to make it happen. And we have all of that available to us. And there's a few areas, and really it's going to come on back down. I'll go to this, folks. We have got to play better on third down on both sides of the ball. One, so that we can get it back to the offense, and two, so that we can keep it. And when we're doing that, then you'll see us roll. And we have a lot of firepower on offense that we can't wait to unveil where it's consistent. You can see it rolling. And we've got a lot of playmaking on defense. We've got to get it rolling, got to get cleaned up so that it shows. And like it's an early part of the season, it hasn't gone as well as we want, and we got to keep battling to turn it.
So how does that affect a difficult decision? You have 4th and 7 from, I think it was your own 43, just under 12 minutes left in the game. You're down 10. You decide to punt in that spot. How does the identity and the third downs and all of that play into that decision for you?
Well, if you don't make that, the game is pretty much, you just gave them the game. And so we had confidence that we'll be able to, we can handle our situations and get ourselves through that and get the opportunity to get the ball back and do it. If you give them the ball right there and you don't make 4th and 7 is not easy. Now the percentages are not in your favor at all. 4th and 1 and 2, it's a different deal. 4th and 7 that's a difficult situation to make. If you don't make it, then you're handing them the ball at midfield and it's their game, and clock is on their side, all that stuff. So that's just the way we do it.
As you mentioned the playmakers on defense and that you have a lot of them, what can you do, whether it's scheme-wise or whatever, to help some of those playmakers make big plays?
Well, we're working at it, and there are things that we do, and we just got to make sure that when the opportunity is there, we come through and make the plays. That's one, and then two, we've got to get our guys loose. We got to cut them loose and make sure that they, like you're saying, will continue to work to free up guys. And like when you saw Cody coming through on a blitz, and he's in the quarterback's mug, and you saw Jordan Brooks ripping through, and those are the kinds of opportunities that we have, and it has to work together, with the coverage sometimes so that the guy can get that next step to make the play. Those are the things we got to tweak to make sure that we max out our opportunities.
Well, and I guess I'd point to Jamal Adams especially because he is such a big play kind of a guy. I know he's had some tackles. We haven't seen those game-changing plays yet from him, the huge sack, the sack fumble, the interception, the turnovers that I know, Matt Hasselbeck was telling us last week. Matt had a good story about you, by the way. He was saying on every team I've ever been around, the coach starts yelling, what kind of defense do we want to be? We want to be tough. We want to be physical. And he said, nope, not with Pete. All I heard is we want the ball back. Just get us the ball back. That's what the defense has to do. It was a good reminder that it's all about the ball. And so, isn't that part of the allure of a Jamal Adams is his ability to get you the ball back?
Yeah, it is. It sure is. And we've had 3 games now. We haven't turned the ball over 2 of them, and 1 time so far we have not gotten the football. And that basically comes from pass disruption, the disruption of the quarterback, the plays that you hit the ball out of his hands or you force him to throw us the football. That has not happened for us, and we have to continue to focus at it. And it's not just slugging the ball out when the guys when they're running the football. It's those plays that happen in the midst of the pass, rushing the passer, that we got to create. Just like you saw the great play that Darryl made yesterday. The great rush, he comes off the edge. We had some opportunities now. We were free a number of times, and we got to do it just right. We came off the edge on a keeper that we got to be right in that quarterback's mug, and we chase the tailback. And there's things we have to do better so that we don't miss our opportunities when they arise. And the good teams minimize those ops for you. This is a good offensive team, and they did a nice job yesterday.
Does that happen in practice, in film session? I know you guys don't have as much practice time as you once did in the NFL. So where does some of that teaching take place?
No, it's throughout. It really is throughout. It's in all phases of it. The walkthroughs are huge. We can't beat on our guys, all day long at reps wise. So the walkthrough period is really, I think our fans would be shocked at how often we spend time in that mode. That's the teaching mode. That's where you're really showing them the plays, the fits, and how things can happen, and trying to get their minds right. And then as we go to practice, we speed up the tempo so that they can take that learning, to the next level. And then then there's another level of it when you get to game time. And we try to manufacture as lifelike as we can when we get our practice sessions. But we have to maximize those.
As a leader, How do you know when to stay the course and when to alter a plan?
I really think, Mike, those kinds of choices come from really good input from the people around you, and then it eventually, though, gets to a gut. You got to call it. And I like a lot of information. I like to be flooded with stuff, and trusting that if I get good information, I'll make the right choice. And I trust that, and I think you have to have an understanding with yourself that you're going to get to a point where you have to call it, and then when you call it, you go with it and you make it work. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but it's really eventually it gets to your gut, what you feel, and then you go. But the information and the input is really crucial from my end.
Well, I just think it's so interesting in your history of going back and taking the time after New England to determine who you wanted to be and what you wanted your philosophies to be, going to USC, starting to enact that, but then also sticking to who you are and what you want to be, while at the same time adapting to a game that is constantly evolving and all of the new evolutions, to use the same word, that constantly change in this game. I would think that would be a huge challenge of when to stick to your guns and when to try something new.
Yeah, I don't know that you could have set it up much more clearly than it is. It's a constant challenge, and we're constantly in the mode of adapting. And if you're not, then you're getting left behind. And so that's. And then that goes to the input and the interaction and the observations and making the assessments and then going, and that's what this job is all about. It's always been multifaceted in that there's so many different areas that you can factor in on and be called on to make decisions on, that when you haven't been a head coach and you don't know that, you're flooded with choices and options and decisions to be made in so many areas, and it's fascinating, and it's a thriving position to be in.
Couple of injury updates. Let's just run through them here. Kerry Hyder had a concussion, if I'm not mistaken. Will we see him this week?
I don't know that yet. That's all process and protocol.
D. Eskridge.
We're counting on him coming back. Yeah, we got a great report through the weekend, and we think he's going to be able to work this week. So look forward to that. Some
of the guys that went out and came back in, Chris Carson, okay?
Yeah, he was cramping up a little bit. He was okay.
And Lockett?
We didn't hear from Locke this morning. I think he's okay. He was really, really relieved that something bad didn't happen, and he took the time to make sure that he measured that well, and then came back and played. I think he's okay.
I guess same with Brooks.
Yeah, he cramped up really bad. Both calves went, so it took him a while to get juiced back, get back in the game.
You think we'll see Rashad Penny this week?
That's still questionable. Can't call that one yet. We don't know that yet.
And then Shell, I guess, would be the last one.
Same. His ankle is just how far has it come back? Does he make it back? There's a couple other guys. Jamarco Jones.
Okay, yeah, Jamarco.
Jamarco got sick. He got sick. He was a little bit sick early, and then at halftime, his stomach just blew up on him a little bit, so he couldn't go.
That's a good reason not to go. I wouldn't go if that were the case. I'd be tapping out for the safety of everybody around me. So, Coach, we appreciate it. Thanks for answering all the questions. Huge week this week on the road against San Francisco, division rivalry, the whole deal. I assume you guys will be pretty up for this one.
Yeah, we got to be. This will be a championship feel from the get go. So it's a really important week for us to get right.
A little extra urgency in the early part of the year this year.
They're always. I don't know if it's extra urgency. It should always be extra urgency, really. So we'll get after it.
Coach,
Thanks.
We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, Mike.